Hi everyone, my name is Deepthi and I am the host of Kidney Talkies. I am a kidney transplant survivor myself, and today we have a special guest, Raymond, with us. Hi Raymond,
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How is your day going?
Doing well. It's been a busy day and end of our days. It's pretty late in the day, but it's been a good day.
Uh, Welcome, Raymond, to the Kidney Talkies. Could you please tell our audience a little bit about yourself, who you are?
Sure. My name's Ray Fales. I live in San Jose, California. About 50 years old, and am a kidney transplant survivor.
And could you tell a little bit about how you were diagnosed with the kidney disease and when did you got your transplant and where did you got your transplant from?
Sure. So kind of a unique situation, but it's probably more common for all of us kidney people. Um, I was diagnosed with gout first about 14 years ago, and kind of came out of nowhere. I just kind of woke up one day and was thought I had kicked something, and my foot was hurting, throbbing. Didn't know why. I went to the doctor. They kind of said, it may be gout. We're not sure, and they gave me some medicine, and returned about 2 weeks later, and ended up putting me on medicine continuously. And from there on, I was kind of just doing everything fine, no issues. And then as things progressed, my gout kind of got a little worse. And eventually I had a biopsy on my kidney. And this was probably about 10 years ago. And they were kind of trying to figure out why I was having such a high uric acid, and some of my levels were really kind of off. And so over time, they did this biopsy, and nothing showed up, no cancer, no unusual things, and this kind of the function of my kidney they saw was kind of decreasing. And so over the years, I just kind of tried to maintain with what I had, and then slowly my kidney kind of functioned. It was decreasing, and then about 2.5 or probably about 3 years ago, I ended up getting put on the kidney transplant list. um, I ended up getting listed at UCSF, and obviously I didn't really know, kind of, I wasn't that informed. Kind of was trying to understand a little more, and kind of try to, within that original stage of when I did my biopsy, a bunch of my family members ended up going through the process as well, and just to check them. And then they ended up doing um, genetic testing just to see if there was something in my family. Everything kind of came back negative, and so they kind of said that, or diagnosed me as FSGS. And so, as I mentioned, my kidney function just kind of slowly deteriorated. Was listed with UCSF about 3 years ago. Was getting closer and closer, as my kidney function was going down to going on dialysis. And so I started kind of asking more questions, and kind of really trying to avoid that. So I asked my doctor. I didn't really have any other issues. It was just my kidney function was going down and down and down. So I was kind of pressing on my doctor if there was anything else, any other options, because of California with either a deceased donor 10 years. A bunch of my family members and people I know were going through the tests, and eventually we thought we were close, and it was kind of um, you know the going to the last step, people would kind of get um, denied. And so I was kind of pressing my doctor and said, hey, is there any other option for me? And I'm with Kaiser, and had mentioned that they had some contracts with out of state providers. And so eventually they got me approved to go to Nebraska Medicine, and I was able to get on their wait list. And so they actually flew me out there and eventually evaluated me, reviewed all the notes that my doctors had, and then pushed me through a bunch of their tests. And then they actually listed me there. So I was actually dual listed in 2 states, California and Nebraska.
Oh, wow. And how
Yeah.
long you waited to get the kidney after you got active on the Nebraska list?
So with that list, being on there, they were actually able to bridge my time. So at the time, I was at 2.5 years on California's list, and they were able to bridge my time. Their list is quite less. They're about 3 to 4 years, and depending on how many are happening, and because it's just the amount their population's a lot less than California, and then they also have people, actually quite a few people coming from out of state, so they do get quite a few transplants. I think they do. Nebraska does about 300 plus a year right now.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
how much time were you given to flew to Nebraska when you got the call that kidney is waiting for you?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't answer that question. So when I flew out there, it was kind of a pretty good experience. I didn't have any issues. So me and my wife went out there, and we flew out there for 2 days. So we went there, got there that night, and then did a bunch of tests. And actually, it was 3 days. So we probably did about 6 or 7 hours of tests, going through, meeting a bunch of doctors, different types of specialists. And then on the second day, we met with a couple more doctors and the psychologist just to evaluate me and kind of see what my mental state was. And then we flew back. And kind of the timeline they gave me was that they were going to review with all the doctors and just kind of evaluate their notes, the tests, and see if I'm a possible candidate. Because it is, you do have to stay there. And that was kind of why I was actually a pretty good candidate, because I wasn't on dialysis. I didn't have any mobility issues, and, I could fly. And so, I was flexible that I would be able to stay there for about 6 to 8 weeks as well. So both me and my wife, you have to have a caretaker to be available with you while you're there. And so we had to, I talked with my wife, and we both agreed that, this would be a possible option for me, based off of, some of the other options that we had, or the limited options. And so, their time frame, they were supposed to get back to me within a month after we met with them. They did call me about within a month, and they kind of told me that, they were going to accept me. And, so I was going to get dual listed. And then I kind of asked them about the dual enrollment and bridging my time. And so they do give you a few options. And so you can either bridge your time or not bridge your time. And then, a couple other things that they had asked. And, I guess some people decide not to, dual enroll. And so I kind of asked the person that I was talking to, why wouldn't you? And she's like, I don't know. And so it just seemed kind of an obvious thing for me. I was trying to not have to go to dialysis. And so, I dual enrolled and I bridged my time. And so then my next question to her was that, what is the estimate of kind of the time frame of being that I'm dual or bridging my time, where do you think I stand? And she said, oh, our time is about 3.5 years right now. So I kind of was a little disappointed, because I thought, my doctor was saying, it was about 2.5 years. And I'm like, I can't wait another year. And so, I kind of left the call. Not that it was a bad thing. It was definitely positive, but I definitely was kind of, my GFR was about 12 at the time, and I was kind of going, I'm getting closer and closer. I felt fine, but it's just, you never know when you may have to go to dialysis. And so, I was kind of a little disappointed. About 4 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks later, I was driving, and I got a call when I was driving from Nebraska. On my phone, it said Nebraska Medical. And so I answered it, and they said, "Hey, we have an opportunity for a kidney." And I was like, kind of caught me off guard, because my thought process was that, it was going to be another, 9-10 months or a year out. And this was about a month later after I was enrolled. And so ended up, accepting. It was a deceased donor. Don't know a whole lot about this person, but very thankful for the opportunity, and been doing good since.
Okay, so you got a call, and how many did you book the flight immediately once you got the call that there is a kidney waiting for you? And how long was the flight from California to
Yeah. So it was kind of a weird situation. You kind of see or hear about people getting those calls, and it's like, hey, get on the plane, or it's like instant, you got to get on the plane as fast as possible. It was kind of a wait, or hurry up and wait. So the conversation was that, they're evaluating the donor, and making sure everything's going to match. And then, they had done enough, but they said, there was other things that they were doing. And I believe, from what I know, is that this deceased donor donated quite a few other organs. So they probably donated both kidneys, maybe a heart, and a bunch of, a few other organs. And so I think they had to kind of coordinate and line up all the doctors, and to, harvest the person, and then get the organs out, and then schedule the other doctor to do, the transplant. So my understanding is that the kidney can last a little longer, but don't quote me on this, outside. So I think they had their processes where they had to, do the other transplants or harvest other organs first. And then, so I ended up getting the call. They said, "Hey, hold off, wait, we're just validating everything. We're trying to line up all the doctors and making sure that, we have the necessary people to be able to support the transplant." And so they said they'll give me a call in the morning. And so I was like, okay. They said, don't, book anything, just hold it off. And so we got a call at 5 a.m, and
What?
said, yeah. And so they said, okay, I think we are ready to get you there. Everything seems like we got the doctors. Everybody's going to be, scheduled to come in, because a lot of the doctors, from what they had said, a lot of them are not technically scheduled on the weekends. So most of their doctors come in during the week. And so they don't schedule a lot of transplants on the weekends. And so they had to get all the resources, and I got my flights, everything arranged, and we got to Nebraska. It's about a 3.5 hour flight. And so it was kind of a unique experience, because me and my wife were like, hey, we're going to be here for, 6-8 weeks. So we had all these bags packed and ready to go. And, they're like, no, carry on only. So me and my wife had to go back and unpack and repack. And so it was kind of, it was this kind of funny situation, because we were like expecting to be there for a long time with all our stuff. And they said, no, you got to go straight to the hospital. You don't have time to go anywhere else. Just go straight to the hospital. So then we go check in. We got, to the airport, landed in Nebraska. It's in Omaha, is their hospital, and went straight there, and ended up getting checked in, stayed the night. They said the surgery was going to be scheduled in the morning. Waited waited, and about 3:30 in the afternoon is when they got me into the operating room. So
Oh, wow.
yeah,
And
so it was about almost 48 hours. Yeah, it was it's not that quick. You expect it to be just get there and be go straight into the operating room, but it was kind of hurry up and wait, and then finally it happened.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how long did the surgery lasted?
Um, Honestly, I don't know. I mean they told me it was like 2.5, 3 hours. But I woke up and it was kind of rough for me because just all the I never really do well on any of this, sedatives or this, the medication that they put you out with. And so it was kind of I was out pretty good, and then I woke up and don't remember much honestly. But they had said it was about 2.5, 3 hours.
And what were your first reaction after waking up with the transplant?
Um, I honestly, I was just out of it. Like I said, a lot of that medication, I had a hard time because I was throwing up, and so I ended up throwing in kind of a weird situation. I just don't do well with that medication, whatever they give you, and so it was kind of rough because of that. And I remember kind of having a hard time with it, just because you have a huge incision, and it's not a great feeling when you're throwing up. And that's one of the worst things or one of the things I remember, just because it was kind of rough for me at that point. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, um, but it was definitely the unique thing for me was that I have a hard time with any doctors. I mean, I have a hard time giving my blood. Even before this, it was difficult. I faint, or I get my face turns ghostly white. Um, And so, honestly, this transplant, of the way it happened, was probably the best thing for me because it wasn't scheduled. It was kind of, it was just, hey, I got to go. I just got to deal with it. I didn't have to think about it. And so I was able to just show up and, just have it done. And it wasn't on my calendar, right? It wasn't something I was like, hey, here's the day scheduled. Um, and having to wait and wait and wait. It was kind of out of the blue, and it was a complete surprise of when it all happened. So that was probably a really good thing for me personally, just the way I deal with any type of blood incisions, um, any type of doctor stuff. Now I'm a lot better because it wasn't as bad as I thought. Um, I think my mind personally just goes into different places, and it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. And now I can go to the doctor and it doesn't bother me anymore, honestly. Um, but I still worry about every outcome, but I think that's pretty normal for most people. When you get your tests and your results and stuff like that, I think that's anybody. But as far as doing the procedures, and it definitely doesn't bother me as much as it used to.
And how, after your transplant, how long did you and your wife stayed in Nebraska?
So I I'm in okay shape. Like I had mentioned, I was never on dialysis, and I was trying to keep as the best shape I could be, based off of the energy levels and just the physical things I could do. Um, and so, being that that's the case, and the second day I was actually up and walking, and the doctors really tried to motivate me because I just they're like, hey, dude, you got to walk, you got to do this, you got to get your body moving, your blood circulating. And so I really pushed myself to try to get out of the hospital. And so I was there for about 5.5 weeks, which they said was very quick. But it wasn't that I was in the hospital the whole time. I was out of the hospital about 5.5, 6 days. um, from the surgery. But as far as staying in Nebraska, I was out of there in like 5.5, 6 weeks.
So did you
Um,
stay in the hospital all the time, or
no, no. So yeah, so I was released out of the hospital after 5.5 days.
okay?
And then I ended up staying. They gave me the option to either stay in a hotel. We ended up, or we could do an Airbnb, which is what we did. And so we just stayed in a 1 bedroom apartment for about the 5.5 weeks. So my wife stayed there, while I was in the hospital, and then I came after I was released. And
And
so, yeah. So I mean, it was a good experience because we had a kitchen. And it was kind of like living at home, but not really at home. Um, it was cool because we were in a completely different town, different city. We were able to walk around. We were kind of in the downtown area of Omaha, so we were able to walk everywhere and go check out restaurants, just explore. We went to the zoo. We went to different places. So it was kind of like a vacation in itself. So in Nebraska, it was a nice place. We were there, luckily, in a good part of the year, because it was in the right before fall or right in the fall season, and so it wasn't super hot and it wasn't super cold, and so we were actually there in a pretty nice part of the year.
what do you think now, since you're out of Nebraska, how is your health being managed? Are you remotely monitored, or do you have a local nephrologist or transfer to a local transplant center?
Mhm. So originally, so Nebraska oversaw me for that 6 weeks. So I'd periodically go every 3 days, or three and 4 days, to get looked at and do my tests, while I was in Nebraska. And then they transferred my case and files over back to Kaiser. Um, Kaiser does have the kidney specialists are up in San Francisco. So I ended up going there right when I got back. And then ever since, or these are the transplant specialists. Ever since, I just do stuff remotely with them versus driving into the city, because it's about an hour away from me. I do have a nephrologist here close by to me, which I see periodically, but most of my cases, or most of my appointments right now, are with the kidney transplant team.
And did insurance cover the cost of the transplant, the cost of surgery?
Yeah, so I was pretty lucky. My wife has really good insurance through her work, and they were able to cover pretty much most of it. They covered the when we got approved. Obviously we looked at the expenses and kind of some of the things we would have to cover, and especially specifically going outside of our state. And so they actually covered quite a bit. They covered a lot of our food. They covered our travel. They covered our hotel, or our Airbnb, and then I mean, pretty much most of it. And so it wasn't the worst situation for us. The hardest part was really our dog, because our dog was kind of transferred around from person to person, because we were gone for six weeks. But as far as any costs, we were lucky because of our insurance was covering most of it.
And now, for being in the good health of the transplant, what are some of the things you need to do about the medication, going to the labs? Can you tell a little bit more about that part?
Yeah. Um, so originally I was going, it got switched to every week, every 2 weeks. Right now I'm about every 3 to 4 weeks. And then my kidney transplant team up in San Francisco, right now I'm about every 3 months meeting with them. Um, but as far as now, most of my levels are doing pretty well. I've had a few little hiccups as far as things that aren't, you know, it sounds like they're common, but I have some like blood cells in my urine, which I had to get tested for, but I guess it's fairly common that transplant, it is kind of a side effect or something that does possibly happen. I had to go through a couple tests, everything's come back negative on that. And so it's just kind of waiting and seeing if that kind of goes away or not. And then, it's not like I see blood in my urine, but it is, they're seeing some sort of, evidence that there's some sort of cell or something going on that's a little off. But, because of all the transplant things that could happen, it is something as far as a side effect that, people do get.
And did you also have any ultrasound or biopsy of the transplanted kidney?
Yeah. So a couple of the tests for that were I did have to go do an ultrasound. And then I also had to do uh, essentially a test to go into the bladder just to make sure everything was, looking the way it should. But that's, a couple things that they did check. Everything came back, no issues. It's just, unfortunately there's some side effects that, probably are related to the transplant that has caused this, because they do hook up, organs to other organs, and sometimes there's some loss of cells that kind of pass through to each of the organs.
And can you eat anything now?
So there are, pretty much your standard limitations with like grapefruit and some other things. Pomegranate, I think it is, and some stuff I didn't really eat, so it really isn't a big deal to me. My diet's definitely expanded since the transplant. Gained some weight. I think they've all said that's fairly normal. I think I've gained probably about 10, 15 pounds since my transplant. I am probably drinking more water because that, obviously is a big part of your body weight. But yeah, I mean, as far as any dietary restrictions, it's pretty much back fairly to normal, at least the way I used to eat. Food does taste a lot better. So it's definitely one of those things that, for over the years, your diet definitely gets cut back, and limited options, and salt, everything. Definitely have, still aware of a lot of the things that, I don't want to abuse of the situation that I have. But it's definitely, food and other things are definitely a lot different than they were when I was, pre-transplant.
Okay. And what about the medication adherence part? Could you tell a little bit about your medications? You don't need to name them.
Yeah. So my medication, I just do have an 8:30 in the morning and an 8:30 at night. So I just have two times. Most of my medications, probably a third of them, are just vitamins. And then I probably take about, I think there's 12 in the morning and 9 or 10 at night. But probably 3 or 4 of them are just vitamins. And then 2 of them are multiple pills. But it's you got to be pretty on time with your medicines. At least this is what they've told me. This is what I do. I do set my clock every day, or I have a schedule every day for my alarm clock to go off. It could fluctuate how your medicines work if you don't take them on a same time every day. At least that's what they've said. So I've tried to do that. I'm usually, if it's anything late, it's less than 5 minutes, but it's definitely something personally I've really tried to focus on. I know when I do my blood tests, I can't take my medicine until I do my blood test for, because they do check one of the medicines specifically. And they want to make sure that there's enough of it, or making sure there's not enough of it or too much. So they want you to take it before you eat. And then very very diligent on making sure I take those medicines on the every day at the right times.
And for the skin cancer, have you already scheduled an appointment with the dermatologist? Because one of the things they had told about after me
Yeah.
that I'm more susceptible to skin cancer.
Yeah. So I have not yet. I'm coming up on a year. So my transplant was the 28th of September. So I'm getting close to being a year out. But definitely, I'm pretty fair person. So I definitely am somewhat concerned about it. But I haven't had it. I've seen my primary doctor. We are going to get it scheduled. I just haven't gotten it scheduled yet.
Okay, now let's ask some fun questions. What is your favorite vacation?
I would say Hawaii.
And what sports you enjoy most?
So my kids play. I played baseball. My kids play softball, and then I really like golf.
And any favorite vacation you would now like to plan in the future?
My kids want to go back to Hawaii. That's kind of where it's just there's just a lot of stuff to do for us because we like hiking. I like golf. We just like kind of lounging. My kids like going to the beach. I'm not much of a beach person, but there's just a little bit of everything there for all of us versus going to somewhere that is kind of one thing to do.
And what kind of a movies you like to watch?
I'm kind of more of the stupid comedy guy. Yeah.
Any favorite ones?
Um, I don't know. My wife hates all the movies. I mean, I'm like Caddyshack. They're just stupid comedy. Adam Sandler movies. Just my attention span's kind of short. So I just kind of like those ones where I can kind of chime in and out and still laugh at it. I try not to. My life has kind of had. I was in sales, tech sales and stuff, and you kind of get a lot of pressure and other things, and just try to find ways to keep your mind in different places so that you don't take things as seriously. So those movies, kind of just the stupid comedy type movies, kind of just make me laugh and um, not take things as seriously as most things.
Any favorite actor?
Not really. I don't really have one. I mean, yeah, not really any of them come to mind. It's just kind of it's a different with all the like Netflix and all the streaming services. There's not as many like that's the actor type person anymore. Just because there's so many different types of movies, and they have your lower level movies, and there's less stuff in the movie theaters. So personally, I don't have one anymore.
And do you like listening to music?
So I like all types of music. I used to DJ, so I like house music. And so I still do DJ a little bit. But I, used to go out to, see DJs, and my kids really like DJs and then other types of music. So I kind of listen to some of the music they listen to as well.
And any advice you would like to give to other kidney patients?
Um, Personally, I would say try to stay in the best health you can. And I know it's kind of tough, but the surgery is, it takes a lot out of you, and the best health you can be in is going to help your recovery. And then also don't be discouraged with kind of things taking longer, because unfortunately there are quite a few people out there, and everybody's going through different stages of either getting qualified or going through different situations with the doctors. Everybody has something going on, and you just have to be patient. And that was kind of, being, I don't know if just the instant gratification of most people's lives now, where everybody wants things instantly. Um, you just be patient and don't be discouraged, because unfortunately it is a process, and everybody you know has to, I wouldn't say get in line, but it is kind of that type of situation where there's a lot of people, and um, the doctors are working, and the nurses, everybody's working as fast and the best they can. So it's just one of those situations where, don't be discouraged about it.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah,
And I hope your story will help other peoples too who are navigating the kidney disease.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you.